Breaking news now and continuing coverage out of Baltimore, where the situation appears to be, well, deteriorating. And now you can see a number of young people are sort of standing up to the cops as they work clad in what appears to be riot gear. Some of them had shields. It appears most of them don't. The police appear to be carrying batons, and they're trying to do crowd control. Earlier today, there was a funeral and a memorial for Freddie Gray, the 25-year-old man who died earlier this month after being arrested by police. There was violence, there's no other way to describe it, on Saturday night in Baltimore. And the family had asked, look, please keep things peaceful, at least until we can bury Freddie Gray and have this memorial service. And up until this moment, everything had been fine. The big picture is here, a man was put into a police van and walked into that police van, and 30 minutes later, when he got out of that police van, his attorney says his spine was partially severed and he would later die. That man's name was Freddie Gray. What Baltimore police have not been able to do is explain what happened while Freddie Gray was in that van that caused his spine to go from apparently fine to apparently severed and led to his death. 6 police officers have been on what they're calling administrative leave, which we're told means, for now at least, leave with pay as they investigate. But the slowness of the investigation and the lack of information from the Baltimore Police Department has led to scenes like this. The first thing on the report was that he made eye contact. And that's the reason, according to the reporting of the Baltimore police, that they moved forward on this man. The next thing that happened was, according to the Baltimore police report, he ran from them. So his 2 crimes that day were A, making eye contact, and B, running from police. Neither one of those is an arrestable offense. And if we take it farther, Freddie Gray was brought into a vehicle and hauled away by police. But while in custody of the government, of the police, something happened to Freddie Gray. We have heard nothing from any of these officers. We know no information about what the officers have said, if anything, to authorities. But we do know that today they buried Freddie Gray. What we now have is widespread lawlessness. We have buildings being looted. We have 7 police officers hurt. At last word, one of them unresponsive, and that's never a good thing to hear. And now lines of police officers, as witnessed here, shutting down major streets over one of America's most historic cities, a city that has had problems in these neighborhoods for decades now. The complaints of the underprivileged in this neighborhood have largely gone unheard, according to the people in these neighborhoods, for many years.
Shep, it's Kimberly. Look, obviously it appears that this is a situation that went terribly wrong from the outset. And you mentioned something that I think is significant, which is whether or not there was probable cause for this arrest to begin with. To me, I'm not seeing anything that justifies the fact that the police tried to take him in. It said that they made eye contact, and then he rode away on his bicycle. So then, therefore, what's the nexus for the police to then pursue him, shackle him? The video that people, recipient witnesses were able to shoot, showing that he was in distress, dragging his feet, suggesting that he couldn't walk or was having some kind of serious medical situation. This is where the whole case lies on, is whether or not they had even justified cause to bring him in.
Well, these are outstanding questions, none of which has produced an answer from anyone involved in authority in the city of Baltimore. They say they're still investigating. Well, they have a half-dozen police officers who are on administrative leave. Presumably, they've tried to get information from them. There are many questions about why no authorities have been arrested in this matter. Judge Andrew Napolitano came out in the very early going of this and said, based on his knowledge of the law, this arrest, if it was what they reported it to be, and that's all we can go on from an arrest, was absolutely illegal.
Correct.
And whoever took it upon himself or herself to effect those arrests did so illegally. So just the arrest itself would be cause for discipline.
Right.
Beyond that, how he ended up dead after being in the back of a police car. Keep in mind, when the government takes you away, when the government takes control of you, the government is now responsible for your health and welfare because you're shackled and under the control of the government. And during that period that the government is controlling you, American citizens should reasonably be able to believe that law enforcement will take care of the very minimal things of your well-being, that you would be fed regularly, that you would be housed regularly, that you'd be out from the elements, and you would not be subjected to any sort of negative treatment. After all, if at very, very minimum you're a suspect. Instead, his spine was severed, according to his attorney, and 8 days ago he died, which leads us to today, with thousands and thousands of people who do not have any answers, who have not seen any justice, who have absolutely no idea what happened to this man, except for the knowledge that it happened while he was in government custody. The anger began way before Freddie Gray. The anger in Baltimore and distrust of the police officers, especially in this underprivileged neighborhood, is not new at all. But the lack of forthcoming on the part of authorities on details of what happened to someone like 25-year-old Freddie Gray, who had been charged with looking at them and then riding away from them and later lost his life, that sort of thing has not ever been addressed, according to people in this neighborhood. So some of them are taking matters into their own hands, and it's mighty ugly to see. The car that you see burning on the side streets right now will be the least of our problems, because in every single instance of social unrest in my 25 years in this business, if you get to nightfall and they're not contained, it's going to be a long night. If we want to create larger racial tensions on the heels of this and all the recent African-American problems that we've seen, then we can do that. But if we'd like to look at this as a history of people having problem with police, not people of a color, but people of a community who have had problems with police. Are there big problems in that community with lawlessness? There are. The people who were there will tell you in many cases that's about poverty and lack of opportunity and being put down by the man. That's what they've said all along. If we want to turn this as a nation into something that will rile up the races, then we can do that. But it seems prudent to listen to the two sides who are more insistent that this is about you have a way, we don't have a way. And then once you get to this point where you get no answers for 8 days after a man died for looking at somebody, 8 days later, people almost feel like they have a license to ill. Well, today, they took that license to ill, and we can only hope that police officers and juveniles don't end up dead.
That sounds really disturbing to me. It's almost as though you're justifying this action, Chef.
I am in no way justifying anything. I'm telling you that if you forget history...
I don't forget history.
I'm
looking at something that's really ugly right now.
It is ugly. And history tells us that when a group of people feel so helpless.
They don't riot when they feel helpless. Not everybody riots, Shep.
They don't, but eventually history tells us they do. That's what's happened in all of the social uprisings across this country. The bad days when we look at this rioting, that's about people who are coming in to take advantage of a situation. But the situation, the argument can be made, would never have happened had they gotten some answers about how a man in government custody, in this particular instance, ended up dead instead of not under arrest.
While we watch the live pictures from a tense city that is being burned in places, looting still underway and confrontations with police that have hurt and injured at least 15 police officers, we are told. We are going to go live to Leland Vittert, who is in the middle of it now. Leland?
Well, I think there's certainly a lot of anger out here on the streets, and that's what you hear that it's about, that there is a racism issue here. Remember, Megan, this was one of the worst riots that happened after the death of Martin Luther King, was the Baltimore riots. There were a number of people who died on the streets. There were 400 arrests in the first night, a lot of injuries, a lot of fires on that first night during the Martin Luther King riots. And since then, the poor black community in Baltimore certainly has remained very poor, and the area that we're in is certainly a very rough area that we're in, and there's a lot of folks who are very angry about that. Okay, you say it's not a rough area, but
I'm born and raised around here.
So what's going on?
This is rough.
This is rough. What's happening?
This is rough. What's happening? The police constantly beat on us all the time. They arrest us. It's a thing called a good arrest and a bad arrest. It's too many bad arrests. I myself got arrested with times I did things. Good officers arrested me the proper way. And then with times they arrested me.
Just don't yell just quite as much. Calm down a little.
And then good officers that arrested me the right way. And then the bad officers that beat me. I've been taken to the back of the police station, the main central booking, not central booking, the central police station, in the back and beat up.
And we're seeing the folks who are so angry. We've got folks.
They probably beat up too.
So, but by virtue of the
Andre
fact,
Howard, look me up at Mercy Hospital. I got beat 2013.
Hold on, but
whole face kicked in.
Andrew, hold on. I understand you're angry, but let me ask you this: you say you've been beat by the police. Does that?
They haven't never do nothing. That is little kids acting out. They little children. Half those children. Now there's little broke adults. They probably trying to get.
And there you can see it. You can see the looting happening as we watch the television screen. This is a local community. People are robbing their own stores. They're robbing their own stores. Judge Andrew Napolitano is our Fox News senior judicial analyst. He's with me here watching this tonight. Judge, look at that picture. Look at that city. Look at the smoke rising in an American town that's known as Charm City.
It's hard to believe that it has gotten to this point, and there's a lot of factors that can help explain it, but very few that can help justify it. The police should have been charged by now. Something happened to this guy in their
custody. 6 police officers who had custody of him.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons that there was no problem in South Carolina. Of course, they had the film of the shooting. The police officer was charged immediately. There cannot be
Oklahoma.
Correct. There cannot be the perception that when police cause death, they are treated differently than when civilians cause.
But you don't know what the police
death.
officers have testified to. 5 of the 6 have spoken to police. We don't know what they said yet. Supposedly, they were going to release a report this Friday, May 1st. Now they say there will be a report on that day. However, it may not be made public on that day. But maybe they've said something that we don't know. Shouldn't we wait?
Well, we don't know what the district attorney knows, but he should move with all deliberate speed. The body is buried. The autopsy is done. We're talking about a broken neck and a crushed windpipe.
How can they prove? This is a live shot here. We're trying to. It's police heading to a new location. We're trying to keep our eyes on the various problems popping up in Baltimore, but there are too many to bring to you. You're getting the feeling for that city.
This happened 9 days ago, and the leadership of that city has done nothing to put its finger on the tipping point of these racial problems.
How are they going to prove that these 6 cops did anything to Freddie Gray when his injuries, his catastrophic injuries, appear to have happened inside that van? There's no videotape, and there's no one who can tell us.
Well, somebody made the decision to treat him in such a way as if he were an animal, to administer punishment to him without ever there being a charge or a conviction,
well,
whether it's a hard ride or whatever you want to call it.
Treating him like an animal, but putting him in the police van and not securing him is totally unallowed, and they've admitted that. Arresting him without probable cause is absolutely unacceptable. How do you know they did? I don't know what I agree with you. It looks suspicious right now because they say he looked at them the wrong way and ran. That's Megan, not enough. If there was probable cause for the arrest, if there was something beyond the looking in the eye and the running, they should have told the city by now, so that the city is not drawing the conclusion that the cops get treated differently when they kill somebody than the people in the hood do. If they know something that would speak to the exoneration here, then they should have released it. And if they know something that would lead to a condemnation or an arrest, then they should have made it. Absolutely. And I don't know how it could be taking this long. I mean, unless he was poisoned and there's some chemical they have to extract from his system and it takes days to do it. He was killed by a broken vertebrae and a crushed windpipe. There ought to be an explanation for that the public has the right to know about.